workshop meeting. Please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance by saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. and at this time open up the floor to public comments.
Good morning, commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Knight. I'm a resident of Cumberland County. I'm here to use the opportunity to express my dissatisfaction with the decision the commissioners made a couple of weeks ago not to grant a permit for a protest, but not to do anything about the desecration and the defacing of the courthouse that was done during and or by those people who had the permit. I had heard that there was going to be a protest. I was not here. I didn't hear or read anything about it. I came in 5 days later to the court for hearings, and I noticed all the way from Hanover Street, all the way up to the columns of the courthouse, there was writing in chalk all over. You couldn't take a step without stepping on something that was written by somebody in chalk. I called the commissioners, spoke with Commissioner Fasci about this. I understand the commissioners were aware of it at the time it happened and made a decision, which I think was the wrong decision, not to do anything about it. In my opinion, it was a bad decision. It encourages people to continue to push the envelope. You may think it was appropriate discretion. You may think it was a proper exercise of tolerance. The people who are doing what they're doing to the courthouse see that as weakness. They will push the envelope. There will be more. Yesterday I was in the courthouse. I saw in the steps of the old courthouse, there was writing over there. As a matter of fact, here's chalk that I found that was still out there. I couldn't read exactly what was written there, but there was something on the High Street steps of the old courthouse, still there today. A couple minutes before I came in, it's there. I read today that the leader of the Black Lives Matter in New York promises to burn down the system if they don't get what they want to get. So, do I think that the people in Carlisle who got this permit, whoever they were, know about that? If I know about it, they know about it. All right, you have a couple conventions coming up. You have an election coming up, and no matter what happens, if Donald Trump gets reelected, which I hope happens because it's what we need, there will be riots. If he is not reelected, there'll be celebrations. And either way, Carlisle is going to pay a price, one way or another. In my opinion, the commissioners must exercise the current rights they have to let the public know this will not be tolerated again. I suggest you reach out to the permit holder for this particular demonstration and tell them this will not be tolerated again. I was told in speaking to Commissioner Fasci that there is a review ongoing of the application. And so I've requested it, and when I was told that this was the application that was used by the organization that received the permit a couple weeks ago that led to the defacing of the courthouse. And I'm reading right from this form. There's no date on it, but on the first page, in addition to the need to address any security matters through the Sheriff's Office, the applicant organization may be subject to additional requirements not noted in the application that may be imposed by the county's facilities management department prior to the event. Next page. By signing this application, the applicant specifically agrees to the terms and conditions attached hereto and made a part of this application. Terms and conditions, a 2-page document. First condition, we agree to pay in addition to any fee that costs to repair or replace any and all damage that occurs as a result of, or in any way related, whether that damage is caused to any building, personal property, or land. Number 3, we understand Cumberland County may terminate the event at its discretion if it determines that the use of the property is improper. Number 7, the county reserves the right to require the applicant or organization to provide evidence of liability insurance on a certificate of insurance prior to the event in amounts to be determined by the county, which typically are $1 million per occurrence and $3 million in the aggregate. I'd like to know if the applicant for this permit was required to meet that condition. Can I get an answer to that question right now?
Facilities available to answer the question. They handle the permit, right?
Yes, I'm not sure exactly what they collect.
We're gonna have to gather the answers for you.
Condition number 12, the use of any sidewalk associated with use of county land and or county building must be accomplished without obstructing the safe and unimpeded use of the sideway by pedestrians. The applicant shall be responsible for keeping the sidewalk free of grease, rust, chemicals, paint, stains, or coatings of any type that may be deposited as a result of the event approved by the county. Last condition, number 13, for those requirements contained under these terms and conditions for which the applicant or organization is compliant cannot be determined until after the event has commenced or ended, the applicant and organization agrees to be responsible and pay all costs and expenses incurred by the county to address and remedy those conditions that arose as a result of the event or activity. In the event the applicant and or organization fails to reimburse after the county's request to do so, the applicant organization agrees that it will be responsible for the county's legal fees and costs in collecting such amounts that are due. Based on my conversation with Commissioner Fasci, I was surprised to read how many terms address exactly what happened here. In my opinion, you made a bad decision. I don't think this was too much on the radar at the time you heard about it. I believe you were concerned about being accused of being racist, and therefore crossed your fingers, and now you see what has happened. I have no doubt that the monuments over there across the street are being targeted as we speak. Of course, I'm not involved with those people. But to the extent that you failed to exercise your authority as representative of everybody in the county, you encourage other groups to decide something has to be done. That's a huge mistake if we go that far. Huge mistake. But it'll be on your watch if it happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knight.
I actually going to just make a few comments. I do appreciate you being here, and all of the concerns you voiced were discussed at length among the commissioners. So I would say that one of the things that we recognize, there's a bit of a history to the decision that was made. I won't go into all the fine details, but one of the things that became evident to us through the earlier applicant, also related to the George Floyd death and the public outcry in regards to that, is that the policy that we have in place, I'm going to call it a policy, even though it's not officially a policy, but the application in itself constitutes a policy. So we have, it became very apparent to us with the spontaneous reaction that we've seen to the George Floyd incident in particular, in which it is not just a narrow sliver of the activist group that you're referring to, although they are there. And I've had my say about some of those things as well, just even in the last 24 hours. What became apparent to us was that the process that we had in place of 14 days advance notice that's unrealistic anymore. I mean, people are inclined to call a rally today, and we can't stop them. So that was just one element that we realized. Also, the permitting, we had a lot of discussion about what the fee would be, as we did when we instituted a fee, because we have an obligation to ensure accessibility to the courthouse as in place for people to exercise First Amendment rights. So we kept the fee very low to cover some basic things. It doesn't even cover those costs quite candidly, but it helps offset if there's electricity used, or most people who come here on a podium and they have their say and they're done, and we don't see this kind of activity that you mentioned in the past. This is a new way of people expressing themselves, and we could sit back and say we won't tolerate it all we want. I'm not sure that's going to matter to a lot of people. We do need to address one point particularly. You mentioned those people who have the permit. Our problem is we don't know exactly who those people are. We have individuals who will come in and ask for a permit, as this group did, and then they put it out on Facebook, something I didn't go along with, so I'm not really, I still haven't figured out exactly its impact, but they'll put it out on Facebook, and literally hundreds of people will show up. And if we tried to say that you, the applicant, are personally, financially liable for every single one of those people who may choose to show up, whether they're part of an organized group, or they're just tagging along, or they're just troublemakers, and there's lots of that goes on as well. We're not gonna have too many people who are willing to, or able to accept that type of responsibility. And I think, candidly, we will be probably sued for suppressing people's First Amendment rights, because we have to make the place available. And one of the ongoing issues we deal with is the sidewalk belongs to the borough, the steps belong to the county. And so there's jurisdictional issues involved. And we had one group that applied and wanted to come downtown while the farmer's market was going on a weekday when our people were working here in the midst of the pandemic. And Commissioner Foster asked them to delay for one day so that we could mitigate those problems. And we also have a practice, we notify the sheriff's office because they have to provide security for the building. Now, anything that we do, it became apparent to us, I'll sum this up, it became apparent to us that the process we have in place for permitting is completely inadequate anymore. And we need to come to an arrangement with the sheriff's office regarding what the rules of engagement are, when to involve themselves. And we had a lot of discussion just about the defacement that took place. And luckily it was chalk, but I think I raised the questions of what about next time? When it's spray paint, then what do we do? And if the sheriff's deputy is witnessing that take place, what are they supposed to do? Photograph it, tell them please stop, hit them over the head with a billy club? We need to come up with those rules, and they need to be clear rules, or we're gonna end up in even bigger trouble. That was the street terrorism that has accompanied the legitimate expressions of people's frustration with inequality in the country. So we're not isolated, as I think you mentioned. We're not isolated from all of that. Some of that's here, some of it, and more of it's coming here, and there will be future problems. So it behooves us to come up with a process that does not trample on people's rights of expression in a public place, where they have a right to gather. And our responsibility to protect the property that belongs to you, as a county taxpayer, and me, and everyone here who pays taxes. So as a public building, public institution deserves respect. We have to ensure ingress and egress so that people can do their business and we can conduct the public's business. And all of these things come into collision at certain times, especially now when emotions are running high. And there are implications to every decision we make that we try to anticipate. We can't anticipate them all. So we changed our permitting process at first to accommodate some of the change. And it became apparent to us through this event that, and that was the event that was allowed, I shouldn't even say allowed, it was, that took place. That was on a weekend, so we were happy to see that the individual who applied for the permit took a very reasonable approach with us, unlike the original applicant from a different group. So we wanted to work with them, we tried to work with them, and I think we did. But honestly, to go back to that individual and say, now you owe us whatever amount of money we made a decision because it was chalk, and people chalk sidewalks pretty much everywhere. in the country, and it's become more prevalent. Some of us find it distasteful, maybe because of the content of the message, maybe because of the aesthetics of what you refer to as defacement. Other people see that as it's the public's house and it's their expression. We all see it differently. We won't agree on what's the proper, but we do have the law to enforce, but we're also constrained by the law in terms of very basic constitutional rights. So we're still working through this and trying to find a system that's going to be optimal, that allows for rightful expression, but that also protects the property of the public. And I don't think there's quite an easy solution to that as what may be applied here. We thought there was, and we were wrong. So now we're going to try something different, and we want to take a thoughtful approach to it. That application you looked at, that's still a work in progress, and we are continuing to try to determine what might be the best answer. I do appreciate your input. It very much parallels much of my own feeling. And it's a perspective that the commissioners have already considered and will continue to consider as we work through the process.
Let me reply. You're getting paralysis by analysis, Commissioner. Anybody that listens to this is going to hear that you said there has to be changes and it's legitimate criticism and they're exercising their constitutional rights. You just spent more time answering me than I addressed you. That's the only thing those people out there are going to hear of what you said. So, are they going to accelerate their process? Absolutely.
Who is that?
They're going to let
That's
you
the problem.
decide.
Who is that?
Whoever did what they did the other day,
Well,
and whoever did across the street.
And we don't know who that is, because there's radical elements, and then there's the legitimate expression. And candidly, constitutionally and legally, we have to side if we err, we have to err on the side of protecting individual rights. That's what we're here for. That's what our system's for.
I disagree that you're making that your only job. That's not your
We
only
didn't say it's
job.
our only job.
Okay, well, that makes, you are making that 1 and 1A. And people that are listening to this that are inclined to do what happened here this month, earlier this month, here, we have a window of opportunity because these people won't take a stand now. I think you should take a stand right now that what happened out there and across the street was wrong. And for the time being, you will not tolerate anything like that. You are working on a possible change to the system, and for those who are interested in having input, come to the meetings and tell us. But until further notice, we're going to exercise every right in that application process to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's what I think you should do.
When you say this, you're referring to the chalking? You're
Yes.
referring to the chalking?
Yes.
Okay,
You can yell and scream and do whatever you want.
right.
I'm okay with that.
Well, again,
But that's okay with people who disagree with that too.
please recall that most of the chalking took place on the sidewalk, and that's not our jurisdiction. So even if we ban it on the steps, we have made it clear they are not to deface the building and the surrounding of the urns have, chalking on them. We're trying to find a way that we can protect what we jurisdictionally have responsibility for, but we have to do that also in cooperation with the borough, because the public doesn't see where that jurisdictional line is. And so we have to come to a solution. That's
why you got the job as commissioners. Make that happen.
That's what we're doing.
Make it happen. It can be a short-term solution pending further review. You got July 4 coming up, you got Democratic convention, wherever basement it's going to be held in, and then you're going to have the Republican convention. Then you're going to have Labor Day. Then you're going to have election. There's lots of opportunity for people who are upset and want to take advantage of the current indecision as to how you're going to react to this. I hope you have a plan for that, because I'll be back as many times as I feel I should be. Maybe I'll even apply for an application.
It's certainly
The
your
road.
First Amendment right to do so.
You better believe I know about that, and I will exercise.
I have a question I'd like to ask our solicitor. First of all, Greg, thanks for coming up. Appreciate what you said, and I agree with a lot of what you said. I know when I heard about the defacing of our property here, I was pretty upset about it. But I want to ask our solicitor a question. County property, Keith, the steps of the courthouse are county property. If that's defaced in any way, do we have the right to have a deputy there during the time of a known event? And is it within the bounds and rights of that deputy as a representative of the sheriff's department to say to someone who is actively defacing our property to stop?
Yes.
Okay.
And if they don't stop.
If they don't stop, I don't believe sheriff deputies have the right to make an arrest for that type of item. I think they'd be reported to Colonel Borough Police.
And then they would show up.
Right.
Okay.
And I may be wrong about the full authority of the sheriff to make certain arrests, but I know they're different, of course, from police department, police officer.
Yeah, but they do have the right to perform some action to stop the
Yes, they
defacing of
can.
the property.
They absolutely
Okay, we
can.
can find the specifics out. Okay. That's my only question.
Well, Commissioners, thank you for your time.
Thank you for reading it.
Thank you, Mr. Knight. The floor is still open for public comment. Hearing none and seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 3. And I'll call on Tim Whalen and Chris Rafferty to present the proposed funding plan for the CDBG CV program. Tim, Chris?
Good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Fine, yeah.
Okay, good. Just wanted to double check. You all may remember that back on June 11th, we presented to you a listing of all of the applications that were received for CDBG COVID funding that were received by that deadline of June 8th. As you may remember, we received 16 applications from 12 different organizations and municipalities that requested more than $1.2 million against the $727,510 that was available. Applicants also were requested to have some matching funds in order to assist in the development of these many projects. Chris Rafferty has led our effort to review all of the applications received, and we presented to you, and I imagine you all have received the proposed project allocation and analysis that Chris prepared earlier this week. Is that correct?
Sorry, ask that again, Tim. I apologize.
Well, we had set the proposed project allocation and analysis
Yes.
earlier this week.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that everybody got that and distributed. So we reviewed all of those applications. We reviewed them for eligibility, fundability, and a justification. So Chris has led that effort. So Chris, you want to take it from here?
Sure. Commissioners, I'm not sure if you want me to go through all the activities one by one, or just if you have any questions or comments regarding our recommendation.
Chris, it's Jean. I read this, and there's something that has jumped out at me that is concerning to me. And this is based on just minimal research that I've done this week on this. So we have this contact tracing program that people are trying to get together in the county. And I see that there's money here for Sadler, or that Sadler is here, and they asked for money to pay for a community health nurse. And then yesterday, I believe that I learned that with the new CARES Act money that's coming in, that none of it can be used to fund a contact tracing program. So if that is true, I am concerned that we don't have enough money here for contact tracing. Where, do we know where any of that money can come from?
Well, again, my review is just limited to the block grant COVID funding. And when we looked at the opportunity I agree that there's not enough money under the block grant program to meet the demand that's going to be coming to trace COVID cases. But what we tried to do with the CBG funding is take a look at what the greatest needs were in the community and address those. We were not aware at the time we were going through this process of what the limitations were of the other funding sources that were coming down the pike. One of the things you to be aware of is block grant funding is very flexible, and we can always amend our plan based on need. So after we go through the process with the money coming from the state, if the commissioners make a determination that more funds should be allocated to contact tracing or testing, we can do that.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you, Tim.
Yep, the other thing that we would point out, Commissioner, is that this $94,069 that was requested by Sadler was their request. So we did not cut their request or modify their request. And one of the things we would also point is that Sadler, as a federally qualified health center, has been receiving additional monies from the federal assistance in order to expand their capacity to treat, install safety measures at their center, and also to do testing of COVID. So, but this was the request that Sadler did make of us. But as Chris pointed out, there is flexibility that we may be able to, that may be needed in the future, and we will work with the commissioners in responding appropriately.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Are there any other questions or comments regarding our funding plan?
I think it's good, you guys.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah, and so just quickly, so quickly in closing, so as you adopt this at your legal meeting on Monday, that will then start the process for doing public notices, public comments, and the completion of the plan that will be submitted to HUD for their final review and approval. So we thank you very much for your consideration. If you have any questions after today's meeting, please feel free to contact either myself or Chris for any immediate follow-up. So thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll call on Tammy Bender to discuss Resolution 2020-18. Tammy?
Good morning, Commissioners. Finance is requesting approval of two 2020 budget resolutions. The first one is for MHIDD, increasing revenue and expenses by $1,984,083. This is to adjust the Human Service Block Grant funding to their actual allocation. It's a revenue increase of $1.2 million of state and $100,000 of federal funding in the allocation due to the long-term structured residence project and designated funding in IDD. The reinvestment carryover from the prior year and reinvestment funding from the Capital Area Behavioral Health Collaboration is $748,000. There is an increase of $25,000 for subsidy and a decrease of $4,000 subsidy that's Perry County's portion. The second resolution is again for MHIDD. It's increasing revenue and expenses by $346,148 to correct their primary allocation that was not received until February. It's also to adjust for the rebudget of $210,000 requested from the state to cover expenditures. There's a decrease of subsidy with this money of $6,677. Is there any questions on these two resolutions?
No.
Thank you, Tammy. Agenda item number 5 is discussion and approval of the COVID-19 County Relief Block Grant Award and the accompanying resolution. Just to note that the submission of the resolution is required to accept the grant award. Commissioners, do you have any questions about the CARES Act funding? No, or about the resolution? Please note that both of these items are actually posted today.
All right, I'll entertain a motion in regards to the first item, the DCD grant contract award, the amount $22,881,555.
Well, I'm gonna move to approve the PADCED grant contract award in the amount of $22,881,555.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We're also looking at action on a resolution authorizing the county to participate in the block grant program. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to pass or accept the passage of resolution 2020-18. No, excuse me, that's the budget adjustment.
Yeah.
My apologies. I make a motion regarding to pass resolution 2020-20, authorization participation by Cumberland County in the COVID-19 County Relief Block Grant Program.
And I second that motion.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Agenda item number 6 was contracts and grants. Agenda item. Agenda item 6. Try this again. Agenda item 6, 1A and B consists of, if you're not speaking, would you please mute your microphones, please? Thank you. Agenda items 6, 1A and B consist of existing contracts, contract extensions, or addenda with no additional cost or increase to the county. Commissioners, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the above agreements, aging and community services and treatment at the prison? All right, we'll move on to agenda item 6.2, which consists of new contracts, vendors, services, grants, and contracts with increases and decreases to the county. And I'll call on Christine Bowden to discuss the addendum for aging and community services. Christine?
Good morning, Commissioners. I am requesting an increase to the Franklin County Aging and Disability Resources Grant, agreement, and this is to cover the cost of a 2% increase to the coordinator of this program. There is enough money already in the contract except for the $130.
Since I'm not familiar with this, why is this for Franklin County?
Cumberland County is what they call the brick and mortar for the Aging and Disabilities Resource Center. We are the coordinator for 9 counties. So we have Franklin, Adams, Dauphin, all of the surrounding counties. So all the money comes to us, and then they have a contract with each one as to how they will spend the money each year.
Thank you, Christine.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? Thank you, Christine. I'll call on Melissa Smith to discuss the addendum for Claremont Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. Melissa?
Good morning, Commissioners. This addendum is for Care Options RX LLC, which is our pharmacy contract. It is showing an increase year over year from what we've spent to next year. In the research that I've done, it's projected to be an 8 to 10% increase on prescription medications, and this is showing a 9% increase.
Any questions for Melissa? Thank you, Melissa. I'll call on Paul Polensky to discuss the grant continuation for criminal justice services. Paul?
Good morning, Commissioners. So this is our last dosage of money from AOPC to fund the opioid intervention court. It's just the same MOU that in the last couple of times. So just it'll be effective once our last allocation of money is completed.
Okay. Any questions for Paul? Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Michelle Seibert is joining us to discuss a grant award for the district attorney's office. Michelle?
Good morning, Your Honor. I'm in front of Judge Cook right now. I've got my venues confused. Good morning, Commissioners. I have the Insurance Fraud Prevention Authority grant. It's a 2-year grant. We've secured this grant since 1995. It pays for an insurance fraud detective and an analyst, and contributes to an assistant district attorney salary to prosecute those cases. We don't need action until Monday.
Any questions for Michelle? Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Tammy Bender is going to join us again to discuss the contracts with Questica LTD. Tammy?
Morning, Commissioners. In front of you, you have 2 contracts for Questica. These are related to the capital project and presentation we did on the new budget software. The first contract is for Caseware and Open Book. It's a 5-year contract for $158,750. Caseware is a software that'll be used to produce the budget document that'll have it automated. The Caseware portion of the contract is $23,750 a year. Open Book is the transparency tool that we use to provide information to our citizens. The first year implementation fee of $1,800 and the subscription fees of $10,000 in the first year were waived for this contract. The second Questica contract is for the budgeting software, which includes the salary, operating, capital, and performance measure modules. This will replace our current 9-year-old SQL database. The software will be hosted on-premise. In the contract is a one-time software costs are $153,190. The professional services for the implementation is $165,375. And the first year annual maintenance and support of $38,297 was waived for just the first year. Is there any questions on these 2 contracts?
No. Okay, thank you, Tammy.
Thank you.
And Holly Sherman is joining us to discuss the contract continuation for human resources. Holly?
Good morning, Commissioners. The contract with Christian Baker Company is an extension for our 7/1 property and liability insurance renewal. Christian Baker Company is our broker. The insurance is actually through Travelers. We are requesting to extend that for the new policy, which has an increase of 2.7% over the expiring policy for an annual amount of $16,885.
Any questions for Holly? Okay, thank you, Holly. And I'll call on Mark Adams to discuss the contract addendum for IMTO. Mark?
Good morning, Commissioners. Back in March, we increased our CenturyLink internet services from 50 meg to 100 meg. We are just seeking an addendum here today to extend that for another year. The total contract is $21,116, which on your paperwork will show an increase in $5,256, but that's for the annual previous year. From what we had implemented in March, it's no change to the existing contract as far as pricing goes month to month.
I'm a little confused, Mark. So we're going from 50 meg to 100 meg.
In March, yes. In March, we went from 50 to 100. So now that was only good through the end of our existing term, which ends in July. Okay. So we're now extending that same level another year.
Okay.
Amy Strike to discuss the contracts, continuations, and addendums for mental health and intellectual developmental disabilities for the fiscal year 2020-2021, as well as fiscal year 2019-2020. Annie?
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I have quite a chunk of these to go through. Predominantly, they represent early intervention contracts for the upcoming fiscal year starting July 1. And I will go through each one just to kind of talk through them a little bit. The first for early intervention is for Amy Hempt. She is a speech therapist who works with children birth to 3, and most of these contracts I'll add are primarily decreases. They're based on what we're believing providers will complete this current fiscal year at. So Amy's contract total will be $4,857, and that represents a $424 decrease. The next is for Aspirations LLC, and that total would be $167,370, and that represents a $47,567 decrease. And Aspirations predominantly provides evaluations for children who are not meeting developmental milestones. The next is for Barbara Weber, and Barbara provides speech therapy services. The total contract amount would be $18,134, and that represents a decrease of $1,866. The next contract is Behavior by Design, and that total would be $9,864, and that actually is an increase of $4,864, and she provides special instructions to children and families. The next contract is Building Blocks Therapy, and the contract total is $106,751, and that represents a $2,184 increase, and they provide occupational, physical, and speech therapy and special instruction for families and their children. The next contract is for Central PA Therapy Connections. The total contract is $13,676, and that's an increase of $3,676, and they provide occupational and speech therapy. The next contract is for Early Intervention Specialists. The contract total is $53,180, and that represents a decrease of $22,992. And they provide nutritional supports, occupational and physical therapies for families, as well as speech instruction. The next contract is with Feeding Little Bellies, and the contract total is $16,375. That represents a $10,000, $42 decrease, and they do nutrition support. The next contract is Geneva Worldwide. The total contract is $3,000, and that's actually an $11,653 decrease, and they provide language interpreter services for us. The next contract is International Corporate Marketing and Training. Contract is $39,846, and that represents a $5,891 decrease. They also provide language interpretation. The next contract is Invo Healthcare Associates. Total contract is $85,341, and that is a $2,946 increase, and they provide evaluation services. The next contract is Jenna Vader Velden. Total contract is $15,335, representing a $5,074 decrease. They provide physical therapy. The next contract is Jennifer Snyder. Total contract amount is $21,505. They provide physical therapy, and that actually represents a $95 increase. Joanna Carnes. Total contract is $10,328, and that represents a $1,055 decrease, and they provide special instruction.
Kimberly Snowden, $53,413. They provide speech therapy, and that represents a $6,465 decrease. Liam Broadbent, total contract $14,766, representing a $4,890 decrease, and they provide speech therapy. Next contract is My Therapy Tree, total contract $227,539, representing a $19,056 decrease for occupational, physical, and speech therapy and special instruction services. Next contract is Nicole Custer, and total contract is $24,411, representing a $10,813 decrease, and they provide occupational therapy. The next contract is Pediatric Therapy Specialist of South Central PA, $94,858, representing a $23,167 decrease, and they provide occupational, physical, and speech therapies and special instruction. Next contract is Shannon Sweeney. Total contract is $4,671, representing a decrease of $1,904, and they provide physical therapy. Next contract is Sovia Therapy, $226,259, representing a $26,541 decrease, and they provide evaluations, occupational, physical, and speech therapies, and special instruction. The next contract is TMD Developmental Therapy and Infant Massage. Total contract is $18,623, representing a $4,638 decrease, and they provide evaluations. And I think that was it. No, I'm sorry, it isn't. We have one more for EI, UCP, United Cerebral Palsy of Central Pennsylvania, and that is $87,856, representing a $55,782 decrease, and they provide occupational, physical, and speech therapy and special instruction. So those are all of the early intervention contracts. They're the new fiscal year starting July 1. Do you have any questions?
Annie, I have a question. So when there are a significant number of decreases here. Does that equate to people in Cumberland County losing services?
I'm going to say that we're basing this year's contracts on how we believe providers are going to complete this fiscal year. At the start of the COVID situation, we had many families electing to not have services in their homes. So services for a short period of time stopped, and now families are restarting services and using telehealth. The other concern that we have is, even though early intervention services is a state mandated service, we've been in conversations with the state regarding the fact that we are not sure about the funding sources for early intervention. In years past, the state has always come through for us, but at one point this fiscal year, we were $500,000 in the red. So we are concerned about that, and especially for the next fiscal year, we're concerned about the revenue from the state. So we are, keeping a watchful eye on this. So we're trying to do all of our contracts, early intervention, MH, and IDD, conservatively based on numbers that we believe are real, and yet, going to be reaching out to the state throughout the year. So, this is a concerning time, I think, for human services.
Okay. Thank you, Annie. And I guess I'll just add to this. I'm watching, we just passed the resolution for the $22,881,555 coming into the county. And I know there are some restrictions on the use of that money, but I also know it's designed for COVID recovery for a lot of different things, and I'm wondering, if some of that money could be used to help.
I don't know. I've also done a little bit of research in terms of how that those funds could be utilized, and I've asked finance a few questions about it as well. At least from my understanding, it's pretty much exclusively just for the COVID aspect of things, and it has to be expended by July 30th, or I'm sorry, December 31st. So we'll be talking further about that, I'm sure, as more information comes out about it. The other thing I'll add to that is, concern for providers. On the Medicaid side of things, there was an 1135 federal waiver requested, which was granted by the federal government, and that permitted all of the funds that go out as payments to providers to be done in an alternative payment arrangement. So for ambulatory services, we're able to pay for some of these services using, it's almost a program funded model. So that was approved by the federal government. So that will also help provider sustainability.
Okay, thanks, Annie. There's a lot to think about and be concerned with. Annie, did you mention early intervention specialists in your list of contracts?
Yes. I don't see it on my list here, actually. Actually, I see it on the agenda, but I didn't see it in my Excel spreadsheet. Let me check on that.
Okay.
I will check on that and follow up. We may need to bring that to the commissioners. Oh, do you see it here? If I did not, I will share that now. It's early intervention specialists. Total contract is $53,180, and that represents a decrease of $22,992, and they provide nutrition support, occupational, physical, and speech therapies.
Thank you, Annie.
Those are the early intervention providers, and then I will just, we have one for intellectual and developmental disabilities, for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and it's a $3,000 total contract amount. It's with Geneva Worldwide and represents a $2,000 decrease, and they provide language interpretation for us. Now, those actually are contracts that we didn't use as heavily as we thought we might. So that is a number that I feel confident about. The rest of the contracts are mental health related. The first being Care Options, which is our pharmacy provider as well. And the contract amount is $10,000. And that's a $1,000 increase, and that's for outpatient pharmacy benefits for individuals with serious mental illness in our communities that receive county-funded services. The next contract is for $3,000, and it's with Geneva Worldwide, and it represents a $1,000 decrease, and that's for language interpretation, mental health services. So those are all the 2021 contract amounts. Do you have any questions about either the IDD or the mental health contracts? 2021. Okay, I'll move to just the amendment portion of existing contracts. These are for this current fiscal year, 1920, and they're for mental health. The first being Care Options, our pharmacy provider, and it's an amendment of an increase of $1,500, and that's due to additional people using county-funded pharmacy benefit, and so that brings their contract total to $9,000. And the next contract is with the Housing Authority for Cumberland and Perry counties, and that's the memorandum of understanding, which is required by the Housing Authority. So that has been circulated, and hopefully folks have a copy of that as well. And then the final contract I heard Tammy discussing earlier with the budget amendment, and this is the amendment for an increase of $437,531 due to the startup of the long-term structured residence. So that will bring New Vision's contract amount for this fiscal year to $1,900,000. Are there any questions about any of those last three?
let you go. Amy, real quick, just since you were pursuing this line of answers in regards to the COVID impacts, and Gene was questioning about that, could you, you made an allusion to the budget situation and the interim solution and such. I noted in your report that you talked about the waiver to pay for services using the APA. Could you go into a little detail on that so we understand maybe what your stopgap effort is?
Well, I'm going to speak to first the county funded pieces of this. Our office requested a waiver through the state to use the same kind of payment model. And again, that was predominantly to make sure providers, because we use fee-for-service programming. So, for example, outpatient service, therapy being provided, or an inability to provide therapy. So what we were doing is we're using numbers from last year. So basically projections to pay providers based off of units that were delivered in a previous year to try to make sure that providers don't go out of business, basically. So we will be paying them based off of last year's units delivered, because we anticipate seeing that the units being delivered this year, the amount of therapy sessions will decrease somewhat because of the COVID crisis. While we were in the governor's stay-at-home order, even though a lot of providers were using telehealth, we do know that numbers were decreased. Providers were using telehealth, but they're billed in 15-minute sessions, 15-minute increments. Typically, a therapy session goes for about 45 minutes. And it was difficult to keep people on the phone or on their computers for 45 minutes. And so providers would not be billing that whole period, which means that they would be basically losing money at every point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I had seen your reference to this, and I was just wanting a little more detail on how you're accommodating that. So.
Our concern is that basically, coming out of the COVID crisis, if we lose mental health providers, which, as you know, we struggle to keep providers, and if we lose providers, the situation specifically around IDD and mental health services will become even more dire than it is currently, and that's our worry.
Okay. All right. That's very helpful. I just have one last question. Also, you mentioned in your report, and since you're here, I'm kind of doing this in lieu of the liaison report, but I noticed that there is a dramatic increase in the suicide rate as reported by Pennsylvania Department of Health during the past year. So now this is a year-over-year comparison, and it's part of your report, so I'm sure you have it maybe not in front of you. But have we seen any change during the COVID, either up, down, sideways? Has there been? What I have here is a year-over-year trend, but I'm interested in that 3-month rough period during the peak of the COVID. Have we seen any change in direction in regards to the suicide rate?
Actually, we're seeing a decrease. I'm not sure what statistics you're looking at, but I call our coroners, both Cumberland and Perry County coroners, and this year we have seen a decrease. And we would like to believe that's in part due to the good efforts of our local American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, right, as well as our own Pulse, Preventing Unnecessary Loss Through Suicide Education, our task force. In Cumberland County this year specifically, we've seen a decrease, and Perry County has seen, I think, a slight decrease. But those are numbers that I track. I would be happy to share that with you.
No, I have as part of your report. I guess my question was the overall trend. It was very evident here, the downward. It's very encouraging. My question is did during the coronavirus peak, or at least the latest peak, did we see any interruption of the general trend line down, or is it just reinforcing that downward trend line? Do we have any statistics on that?
Yeah, you're correct. We're reinforcing that downward trend line. We have not seen the number of suicides yet Now, I will say that we all are concerned. We actually saw a decrease in involuntary evaluations as well for individuals in need of psychiatric treatment. We initially at COVID, when the startup happened, we actually saw a decrease in crisis intervention calls too. And then as it wore on, then we started to see a pretty significant uptick. And so now we're seeing more crisis calls. We have not yet seen, thankfully, an increase in suicide rates. But again, we're keeping a watchful eye on that as well.
Right, and obviously we're not out of the woods yet because nobody knows the trajectory of the infection, so, okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Correct. Sure, thank you.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Annie. Okay, I'll call on Solicitor Brenneman to discuss authorization to advertise the Ramp Bridge Rehabilitation Project.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a request by Mr. Stoner to have you authorize advertisement for the Ramp Bridge. It's really a preservation project. That is a covered bridge, I understand, that's in Newburgh, across the Conantwin Creek. I don't know if you have any other questions, but thank you.
Thank you. And then agenda item number 8 is a Cumberland Plans grant application. Newburgh Borough submitted a Cumberland Plans grant application for an update to their zoning ordinance. They plan to secure consulting assistance for their project. At the Cumberland County Planning Commission meeting on June 18th, the commission did recommend the award of a $15,000 grant to Newburgh Borough. Do you have any questions about the Cumberland Plans grant? No. Okay.
They have a matching amount of $1,500.
Yes.
Okay, and these are funds that have come out of Act 13. Because I recall that we took a piece of that to put in this particular grant fund. Is that correct?
I would have to ask Mr. Stoner.
Okay,
Sorry,
I think it
don't have
was.
that information.
You can just let me know.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay, any other questions? All right, so moving on, I'll call on Commissioner Eichelberger to discuss the appointment recommendation for the Recycling and Waste Authority Board.
Right, I think you're aware the Recycling and Waste Authority Board has been the board has been fairly inactive during the last few months due to the COVID situation, but we did have a meeting last week and provided a recommendation to the commissioners for the vacancy that was created by Bill McLean's passing, unexpected passing earlier this year. And they provided us a candidate recommendation. I think everybody got a copy of the resume, Joel Washuk, Mr. Washuk, but the recommendation is that we fill the seat, that it will be the unexpired term, which ends the end of this year. So it's fairly short interim term involved. So we'll be taking action on that Monday. If anybody has any questions regarding Mr. Washuk, turn it to me or go straight to Jeff.
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Eichelberger. Next, we have discussion of the capital project request. And I'll call on Charles Carruthers to discuss the capital project for domestic relations.
Good morning, everyone. We are requesting the purchase of 14 laptops totaling $22,000. After federal reimbursement, the total county cost would be approximately $7,500. The purpose of these laptops are to assist us in implementation of our COOP plan for operational readiness, whether it's a national disaster or a local emergency. It will allow our staff to continue to provide services in a time-sensitive issues and to continue to process payments for child supports, whether people are in the office or not. We're trying to take lessons learned from the previous few months to move forward, obviously for the possibility of a resurgence. That way we can have basically a seamless transition and people wouldn't have to have their conferences or hearings rescheduled. We can continue those from staff working from home or other locations. Anybody have any questions?
Did Mark Adams look at this request?
Yes, and he's actually on.
Yes.
Call
you.
Agenda item number 11 is Commissioner's Liaison Reports, and I'll start by calling on Commissioner Eichelberger.
Okay, just briefly, of course, the MHIDD, we just had the discussion with the contracts and did provide you a little bit of information with Annie on the line here in regards to the budget situation and how they're accommodating that in the interim. Also, the good news of the significant decline. I'll provide a copy of the chart. Significant decline that we've seen in Pennsylvania in regards to suicide rate over the past year. I think there's a lot of contributing factors to that. But certainly want to acknowledge the role of our folks in Cumberland area HIDD with the suicide prevention efforts, the outreach efforts that are underway. Let's see very quickly. We have, of course, the construction project continues on, and they are recruiting staff for when that will open. The target completion date is mid-August. I don't have an opening date yet, but we'll have more on that in the near future. Okay, we have of course, the action for Monday for recycling police authority. One other thing there, so continuing to do the revision of all of the solid waste plan that's mandated for the state and the rest of the year to complete that. I don't have any information on the yard waste program restart or anything of that at this point. Everything else is, well, I will mention I had a conversation with Jesse McCree, the director for South Central PA Works, the Workforce Investment Board, in regards to the restart of Career Link. Of course, we have Career Link here in Cumberland County, located in Carlisle, and they're getting ready to kick off their restart, but of course they've got some significant challenges because they have to meet all the distancing requirements and such, and anticipating a fair amount of need given the rising unemployment rate even here in Cumberland as a result of the COVID situation. So we had a basic conversation on what's going to be happening there. We'll be keeping an eye on the difficulties that emerge there. If anything else develops on that, I'll let you know. Everything else that I've been working on pretty much is the COVID recovery efforts, and I've participated in a number of phone calls, conference calls now this week with Shippensburg Chamber, scheduled to do the Canonsburg Chamber early next week with the other West Shore and Carlisle we've already taken care of. I'm working closely with Gary Chicontano, the coordinator, as well as our friends at Katie, to ensure that we're meeting our deadlines and preparing for the deployment of the CARES money that is entrusted to us. Obviously, still a lot of questions that have to be answered in terms of the allocation of those, and there's going to be recommendations coming to us. There's still a considerable amount of questions surrounding some of the allocation decisions, what can be used, and what the reporting requirements are. We have the task force that's here in the county government, working closely with Gary, and also Katie has representation on that as well. And they've got their work cut out for them. They're continuing to refine the process. I don't know that there's anything outstanding that we need to report on at this point, but we'll be providing updates on a regular basis. And just Katie in general is focused largely on this, and continue to work through plans on there. Still a lot of questions to be answered before we can move forward assertively, but we know the money's going to be there. We're trying to do needs assessment and the application process smartly so that the actual rollout deployment of funds will be fairly seamless. If we do a preparation now, then it won't pay off in the back end. But we're prepared to start pushing dollars out. I believe the application portal is expected to be up July 7th, I think is the date. And as those dates are refined, I'll push those out to you. Just on the phone for about 2 hours here. For yesterday, and a little bit yesterday as well. So lots more answers coming on that. A lot of activity happening there. A lot of work to be done. That's all I have.
things going on with the transportation study, and the Cumberland County voices in terms of what we want for our roadways, our highways, to alleviate congestion. It's very, very important that as a county we're staying on top of that. And now I'm gonna say something that has nothing to do with my liaison assignments, but I listened to a person this morning come in here who's upset about who couched something in a permit process, okay? And I so appreciate Commissioner Eichelberger, how you handled that. And it is important that we address how we're going to deal with defacing of county property. But yesterday, Capital Region Indivisible was here. And they talked about the importance of the commissioners being leaders and putting together a resolution supportive of all human beings in the county. And I heard the reason why today. Because when I listened to what he said, he was using chalk as an argument to squelch speech that he doesn't like. So my point is that I'm pushing forward with the resolution. As I said yesterday, I'm going to work with this group on putting together a resolution that I hope that we can all get behind. But there it was right in front of me. And my ears are really turned on to that at this point in time. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner Fauci. Commissioner DiFilippo.
Thank you, Stacy. Several items here. The Cumberland County Housing Redevelopment Authority met earlier this week. I think Tim and Chris pretty much covered most of what I wanted to regarding the CDBG-CV funding. I think the 17 recommended applications are outstanding, and I compliment them for their work. Just a separate little item here, the construction at the flats at Factory Square, which is on Factory Street, has resumed. Completion date will be late August, and they'll again be hopefully occupied by the end of the year. Conservation District met this week, and the board took action to approve a request to DEP for technician assistance for the Chesapeake Bay project. In addition, there were 4 dirt, gravel, and low volume road projects approved for areas in Dickinson Township, Cook, and South Newton Townships. A new habitat stream stabilization program was approved. This is a program that addresses stream bank erosion, which includes sediment, nitrogen, and phosphorus. And how this program works, it's really pretty neat. They put, as part of the process, stabilization structures in streams, and they're designed to work with the stream. And what it does, it redirects water away from the banks into the center of the stream bed, takes the pressure off the stream banks, which in turn the hope is to reduce erosion. The Ag Advisory Board met this week, actually it was yesterday. We received an update from the funding from the state, and that included, unfortunately, a $200,000 decrease. Another item deals with one of the farms in Silver Spring that was picked. It was discovered that the zone which this farm is in does not permit agriculture, even though the farm has been in operation since the early 1800s. Long story short, somewhere along the line, the zoning for that zone that it's in, agriculture is removed in error. 2 ways to address this: the township can put together a text amendment, or since their comp plan has been finalized and they're working on their final zoning map, they might go that route and just do it as part of their zoning map, and the farm would be rezoned to a zoning that would permit agriculture. The owner of the farm seems to be agreeable to that, but I'll have more on that in the next couple of weeks. One other item, the CAT board is meeting today, and I hope to get a report soon on that meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner DiFilippo. I would like to report report that executive sessions were held on June 18th, 2020 at 2 p.m. regarding potential litigation, and also on June 24th, 2020 at both 9:30 a.m. and also 11:15 a.m., both regarding personnel. Is there any other business that needs to come before the board today? Hearing none, we will adjourn.